Hey everybody, good evening. It's Andrea Averett over here, and I'm here to tell you something kind of sad. There's no such thing as multitasking. There you go. Something I kind of learned this week. I went to two talks, and both of them kind of said the same thing. And it's interesting because I kind of knew it was true. I knew that I was spreading myself thin every time I tried to multitask, and I like to consider myself the multitask queen for the last, 10 years of my life. Like, I get so much stuff done. But at the end of the day, I know I could do each one so much better if I just allotted the time to each thing individually and gave it its proper attention. So anyway, at this talk, they said multitasking is a myth. So if you're watching the live or replay, drop in multitasking queen. If you thought you were multitasking and conquering the world, drop that in the comments. I'd love to hear it. So the London University actually did a study, and this study was over 1,000 employees, and they studied their cognitive function whilst multitasking. And the results were that it was equivalent to, or their cognitive function was the equivalent as if they were either lacking a ton of sleep or if they were high on drugs. So not effective. And it's really sad. And just not effective. And can you imagine what we're doing when we're listening to the radio, driving the car, checking our phones? This is why accidents happen all the time. So very interesting. And so that's the bad news. It's a myth. The good news is it really takes very, very little focus time, and the key word is focus, to actually run your empire or get what you need to get done. And these tips apply to whether you're homeschooling your kids, doing homework with your kids, getting your taxes done, whatever job you need to get done, or if it's running a business from home. So the tips run across the board. Now, this is the cool part. So Fortune magazine did a study of their top Fortune 500, and they wanted to know how much time they actually spent every day in the nooks and crannies of their business. How much time were they doing, not ordering business cards, not on checking emails, but the real nooks and crannies, the real key components of their business. And the answer was fascinating because it was just 98 minutes. I mean, who doesn't have 98 minutes to allot in a day? But even more interesting than that was another CEO called Jack Welch, who's just really prominent CEO in America. He saw the study, and when he saw 98 minutes, hey Dee, when he saw 98 minutes, he was like, no, it's not that much. I guarantee you it's not that much. And so Forbes magazine took that as a challenge, and they redid the study. And their study, they really got down to the nooks and crannies and really got very specific when they were asking these questions. And the results were astounding. They were actually, dropping the time that you think it is. That a top CEO in America, a billionaire running an empire, how much time do they spend on the key components of their business every day? Like solid focus attention. That answer is 28 minutes. It's like ridiculously short. Who could not do that? Or who can dedicate that time to a homework task, to their math, to, whatever it is that you need to get accomplished. If you just knuckle in, focus, and just do that. I thought that was incredible. So, this speaker, he was awesome, and he gave this analogy of the sun. And he says, the sun, it warms, it gives you daylight, it gives you warmth, but if you focus the energy of the sun, the rays of the sun through a magnifying glass, that same ray can burn a hole through steel. So it becomes very powerful and, again, very effective. So some tips he shared is he said, if you can just, and I'm going to try and do this and kind of maybe let you guys know how it works. He said the two tips is to just get blocks of time. So ideally what you would do is in a day you would have two 45-minute blocks, and you would have them back to back with like maybe a 2-minute, just a stretch break in between. And in order for this to be effective, you have to, you've got to kind of make everyone aware that this is your time. You're not to be interrupted. Your doors are closed. Your phone is off and tucked away. You're only focusing on the task at hand. If you're on your computer, any windows that are open, everything's shut down unless it's specific to what you are doing at the time. And then what was the other tip? So then and it's just to make people aware so they know not to interrupt you. you know, your kids say, Mom is doing this, she's not going to be interrupted for this amount of time, and when this thing is accomplished, we get to do A, B, and C. So there's always a reward at the end. But, you know, he said, if we can do this, then we would have put in our day three times the amount of time that a top CEO in America, I think Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, Brian Tracy, all these people, what they're putting into their own businesses. I mean, we can really blow it out of the water if we wanted to, if we could just concentrate our time. And I thought this was fascinating as someone who doesn't have much time. I thought I can give 90 minutes a day, I think, at least 28 minutes. And then the second thing he gave, which I thought was fascinating too, just so these ideas are not constantly running in our head. If we have, you know, a talk to give, if we have a presentation to give, if we have a report due, whatever in school or homework with our kids, we don't have that in our minds constantly. So it's always buzzing in our head when we're on a date with our husband, when we're making dinner, when we're doing things. So he says, when you give this allotted time to a project, hey Hannah, when you give an allotted time to a project, you focus in, you do the project, and then he has a system he calls box and shelf. So when you're done with that project, with that set time, you box it, you put it in it wouldn't be a physical box, you put it in a, you know, mental box, what's the word I'm looking for? You put it in this box and you put it on the shelf, and you don't touch it again until the next time you allot, and then you would take it down and do it again. So you're not always thinking about it, you just sort of put it away. So anyway, those were his tips that he shared with me. I think I covered everything. Making sure you have zero interruptions is key. And I just thought that was mind-blowing. So I can't wait to apply this to my life and see, you know, to see what kind of results I get. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to see how you organize your time, if you do blocks of time, if you multitask. I guess I didn't really maybe cover it, but to go back to multitasking, it doesn't exist. When we are multitasking, we are not doing several things simultaneously like we thought. We are actually stopping our brain, starting our brain, stopping, starting, stopping, starting, stopping, starting, switching, and we're just not very effective at all on anything because our brain doesn't have time to get into a flow, and we're doing everything. And I guess the study of London actually showed that our cognitive function as we're multitasking is the same as someone who's high on drugs or someone who lacks sleep. So time blocks, I guess that's what I'm going to go for now. I'd love to hear what you're all up to. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks for tuning in, guys.